Thanks everyone for joining. My name is Alok. I run Alok Jain. I run Moonshot Jr. I'm right here in the Silicon Valley in West San Jose. And today we have our guest speaker, my partner and friend, Stephen. He is Chief Operating Officer of AcceptU. And again, I think I will walk you guys through his resume. But when I look our students and aspiring kids, half the school he already went there. I mean, he was at Rice. He went to Cornell. so I think let's wait a few minutes so I can walk you guys through his profile. But really, I mean, today what we are going to talk about our parents' role in the college admission process, especially what we are seeing in last year and a half after all the pandemic hit. I think the universities, it just became like really confusing. The SAT versus ACT, what's going to happen, what they are going to accept, not. A lot of things are changing. People are saying now the GPA is going to be a lot more prevalent. So I think all those questions, I think we'll love to get answers from Stephen. Before I hand it over to him, I really want to walk you guys through what we do at Moonshot Jr. So really, I mean, we started this company a year and a half before. Like really, and I am one of the parents like you guys. I have a 9-year-old son and 14-year-old daughter, and really they go to the top-notch school in Silicon Valley. And I felt that really the innovation and entrepreneurship is not taught in the K-12 education system. And so my other co-founders, and that's how we get together, because this is going to be the crucial set of skills as we proceed in the future, 10, 15 years down the line. There is all kind of automation coming. And when we think about Industry 4.0, I think that will become very prevalent for that kind of job market. And what they are already forecasting that like my parents, they had barely just one job and they pretty much retired using that job. In my generation, people are having 3 to 4 jobs. And then when we look at the Industry 4.0, our kids, when they are going to grow up and going to go in the job market 10 to 15 years down the line, they're already projecting that they will have 10 to 15 jobs average. It could be as high as 20 jobs. And they are not really job, they are job plus career. So all those shifts are coming, and how to really prep them for the Industry 4.0. The other thing, and some of the alarming reports coming out, people kind of discounted them before that, okay, this is not going to happen. But after the acceleration of pandemic, more and more people are trusting. So PwC came out with a report. What they are saying, in 10 years, there is a possible scenario where there will be less than 10% full-time jobs. They are not really saying that everybody will start coming out and opening big companies and hiring employees. What they are saying, the nature of job is going to change. And really more freelancing, more gig economy, those things will become more and more prevalent. So really, the future of work is changing, and the current education system may not be keeping up as it need to be, and how we really can take them forward so they can be relevant and not only survive but thrive in that kind of economy. So at Moonshot Jr., this is our philosophy. We believe really in the Industry 4.0, and you can see in this chart, right? I mean, all kind of things you see, really cutting edge tech is there. What is going to become need of the hour for all kind of jobs. But the technical skills are going to be at forefront. Nobody is denying it. But if you have only the skills, but you don't know how to sell them, I think that will become a question mark. So the technical skills alone will not be enough. They have to be combined with the entrepreneurial skills and soft skills. So at Moonshot Jr., we teach the cutting edge tech, but at the same time, we teach the entrepreneurial skills from e-commerce to go-to-market, basic finances, P&L. We have our board games, a lot of stuff, really to educate the kids so they can learn their skills and they can sell their skills and the soft skills. So that's really from online marketing to every child creates several videos. All of that is part of the leadership, how you appear there, what you say, and all kind of things. And really, our programs are more geared towards the middle school and high school. And then I'll just play a quick video clip, and I'd love to hand it over after that to Stefan. We at Moonshot Junior offer a holistic education through our 4-stage innovator program with an outcome-focused learning and product development experience. It encompasses 360-degree entrepreneurial training by helping kids explore their area of interest and imbibe critical and life skills through hands-on experiential learning.
Hi, I'm Sonia, and I'm from California, USA. As a little kid, I was always super interested in coding in Raspberry Pi.
Hi, my name is Sambi Ronka. I'm 14 and I live in California, United States. I am the creator of the Fantastic Box. The mentors and subject matter experts at Moonshot Jr. have a flexible outlook. This is why I was able to articulately speak in front of a broad audience in arenas such as TEDx, where I shared my thoughts about the future.
Hi, my name is Anita Galvin. I love robotics. I designed and created this camera add-on module with Moonshot Jr.
Hello, I'm Aditi and I'm 11 years old. Hi, I'm Aditi, I'm 13 years old. And we live in England. Together we have written a book called The Atlantic Adventure. We are very grateful for Moonshot Junior's support during our journey.
Hi, my name is Delina. I'm in 7th grade and I'm from Ontario, Canada. I made this animation to show awareness about the situation.
Hi, my name is Liza Stellings and I've been studying with Moonshot Jr. and their innovative program for the past few months. So far, Moonshot has been truly wonderful and I've loved getting to do fun and amazing things with my incredible instructors. Now we are starting our prototype stage for our single button RF attention reminders.
My name is Shoya Malhotra, and the creator of the most realistic Tombola app on the App Store. This app is one of the most realistic, if not the realistic, Tombola app on the market. The innovative program at Moonshot allowed me to get the guidance I needed throughout the whole development lifecycle of the app.
So as you guys can see, basically we are really here for the skill building, right? Whatever applications are there, whatever we are teaching to our kids, I will rather let Stephen talk about that. But really our vision at Moonshot Junior is broader. We are preparing them for maybe college, but I think really for the industry 4.0, for the future of work. So that's what we do. Though we have just done a survey with the parents, and more than 50% of our parents has replied that they believe Moonshot Junior offers something which can put something solid on their kids' resume for college application. But really, we are not the subject matter experts for college. We really do not have the recipes where if your child aspires to go to Harvard versus Cornell, that's where we work with our partners. And today I'm super excited to introduce you guys Stephen. He's right here. He's a chief operating officer and co-founder of AcceptU. And as I said, like he himself went to Cornell, Columbia University, Rice. I mean, these are the names which our kids aspire to go. And he has been at Cornell in the past as assistant dean for 4 years for the graduate admission. And then after that, he was at Princeton again in the graduate admissions as a dean for over 6 years. So I think he has the right credentials, and I will really like to hand it over to Stephen. So I will start stopping my screen. Stephen, please take over.
Sure. Thanks so much, Alok. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's hope that this works. Let me hit share and let me know if you can you see the screen and is it advancing? Okay, you've already learned about me, so I appreciate the introduction. I'll just tell everyone very briefly about AcceptU, and I'm so glad for the opportunity to partner with Moonshot on this webinar and on this presentation. And you're right, we have different skill sets and different areas of expertise, and we love what Moonshot is doing. And later on in this presentation, I'll explain why and how Moonshot makes a lot of sense for students to aspire to highly selective institutions. Again, a little bit about AcceptU. We were founded 11 years ago. So in 2010, we were founded as a virtual admissions company. And I believe we were the first entirely virtual admissions company. And about in the early 2000s or 2010, there were not that many admissions consultants or admissions consulting firms. So we were one of the early ones, but We operated virtually, which was very unusual to everyone back then. About a year and a half ago, obviously, the world was forced to go virtual. As far as our company is concerned, we did not even miss one day because we work with our students regardless of location. So we've had students, and I'll show you this on a future slide. We've had students from probably 20 to 30 countries around the world that we've worked with. And overall, we've probably worked with students in about 35 to 40 of the US states, because location to us doesn't matter. We work with students via video and text and email and telephone. We're very proud of our results. So we have probably more than 225 or so 5-star reviews on the Google reviews. So please go check that out if you want to learn more about us from past clients. And so when we're working with students, we work with students in grades 9 and 10 or 11 and 12. But for grades 9 and 10, we're working with students who are on what we call the planning phase. So we want to help students think about extracurricular activities. What should you do and why? And we'll talk about Moonshot and how it relates to that. We want to talk to students about their summers. Do those matter and why? We also help students think about what kinds of courses they should be taking, what kinds of majors they should be considering, even as far as 9th and 10th graders are concerned. But when we transition to grades 11 and 12, we're really thinking about the applying phase. So we really transition from the planning phase to the applying phase. For 11th graders and even for 12th graders, we're starting to think about things like, what is your list of universities? What are your strategies for admissions? How are you going to present yourself to the institutions? We want students to visit universities if possible, in person or virtually. We want to help students have some real strong and early start on their essays. So the summer before 12th grade, we really want to help students write their essays. We want to help students edit their essays iteratively. We want students to be presenting themselves in the best possible light to the admissions officers. And then as we advance into 12th grade, of course, in November, December, and January, that's when the students are submitting their applications. So I know that probably more parents than students are listening to this particular webinar. And for the parents, we're going to talk in the next half hour or so about what kinds of things the students are going to be going through as they advance from 9 through 12, but also how can you as parents help out your child. As far as our team is concerned, you heard my own resume briefly. Everyone on my team is a former admissions officer. So we have a total combined of 250 years of experience in various admissions offices. And we have great results. More than 90% of our students are admitted to one of their top 3 choices. So here's just a snapshot of some of our admissions counselors at AcceptU. We have about 25 undergrad admissions counselors in total. We actually also have a separate division of our company that has about 10 former graduate admissions officers. But obviously tonight, we're just talking to high school students and the parents of high school students. So as you can see, you'll see some small, highly selective liberal arts and sciences colleges. We have some counselors who represent large public research institutions, some Ivy or Ivy plus type institutions, private, medium-sized universities. And the reason we think it's valuable to have these types of counselors represented in our company is because we know that all students are not created equally. And some students are looking at large and medium and small and selective and non-selective and so forth. So we're always trying to match up the best counselor for the student. And again, location to us doesn't matter. So no matter where you live, we have counselors who have worked with students, presumably from your area. We represent more than 40 different colleges and universities, and we have, I think we do calculate, we actually are more than 60,000, it's probably more like 65,000 hours of counseling that we've provided since we were founded 11 years ago. And actually we've worked with about 5,500 or 5,700, something in that range, students over the past 11 years. So we have broad and vast experience. Here's just a quick snapshot of where our students who have just graduated high school about 1 month ago, or even in the last 2 weeks, this is where they've been admitted. And this is not comprehensive, but this is just a quick snapshot of some of the schools. But you'll see some of our students are looking at institutes of technology or art schools or non-US institutions as well. But most of our students that we work with are looking at US institutions and perhaps Canadian schools as well. But you can see public, Ivy, international, private, and so forth. So we work with students to help them find the best matched or best fit universities for them. If a student has perfect standardized tests and perfect GPA and perfect everything else, he or she might not get into every university. You'd be surprised. It really comes down, and we'll talk about this in a few minutes, it comes down to your essays and your extracurricular profile. And that's why we're very excited to describe what kinds of things students need to do to find themselves admitted to the schools of their choice. So in this presentation, it's very simple how we've broken this down. What a student or what your child must balance, meaning what are the kinds of things that go on in high school, and what's important to admissions officers and what's perhaps less important. And then how do you support your child in this endeavor? And then what if you cannot find peace? We'll talk about that as well. And I'm certain, I can't see the Q&A chat box when I'm presenting, but I'm certain that Alok at the end of this presentation will do a Q&A session, and we obviously won't get every question answered, but I'll leave our contact information up there. So please contact us if you have a specific question that's really pertinent only to your situation or your student. So what must your child balance? Well, the grades are the most critical piece of the puzzle, always. They've always been. And it's not just what are your grades. Actually, students and parents will tell me and my counselors, my colleagues all the time, my GPA is a 4.2163 or my GPA is a 3.877. The numerical GPA, to be quite honest, doesn't really matter. And the reason for that is because the calculation of GPA changes from high school to high school to high school. Even your high school, if you go 10 miles or 20 miles down the road to a neighboring high school, they will actually almost certainly calculate GPA differently. You might be at a high school that uses the AP or advanced placement system, and your friend's high school might use the IB or international baccalaureate system. Or some high schools offer both. Some high schools have neither. So every high school is really different. Your high school might be on the 0 to 4.0 scale and 4 is the max, or you might give additional quality points for an A in an AP class or an A in an honors class. So you might have a GPA that goes over a 4.0. Another high school might be on the 0 to 100 scale. A lot of high schools internationally are on the 0 to 10 scale. And in some countries like France, they're on the 0 to 20 scale. So it really changes so much that the numerical GPA really doesn't matter. Instead, what are admissions officers looking for? They're looking to see every single class that you've taken and how well you did in those classes. They want to see an upward trend in your curriculum. So they want to see that you're taking a more rigorous curriculum as you advance from 9 to 10 to 11 to 12. And you want to be taking the most challenging curriculum for you. So if for you, taking one advanced placement class in senior year is by far the most challenging you can handle, then that is your most challenging curriculum. Great. But you'll be compared to the other students in your high school who maybe took 7 advanced placement classes between 11th and 12th grade. So that relativity or that context really does matter. So you want to make sure that you're taking the most challenging curriculum for you, but you also want to make sure that you're taking a very challenging curriculum as compared to the other college-bound members of your graduating class. And that's really, really critical, and that's really important. So, some people will say my high school only offers 6 AP classes, so the most I can take is 6. Whereas another student says, well, my high school offers 20 APs. The universities are not going to expect that second student to take 20 advanced placement classes. But if at that second high school, all of the top students are taking, say, 10 AP classes by the time they graduate, if you want to compete with them, you also probably should be taking something like 8 or 9 or 10 or 11. So you just want to be competitive with the others from your high school. So we also want to see important grades in 11 and 12. They're much more important than your marks from grades 9 and 10. Now, a lot of universities won't even look at your marks from grade 9 at all. I always did. My colleagues and I at Cornell and admissions, we always did look at the 9th grade marks, but some of my colleagues placed more importance on it than others did. So everyone knows that's a transition year. That's your first year of high school. So there is some forgiveness, but you really want to make sure your 10th grade marks are in a more challenging curriculum than in 9th grade. And you want to make sure that your marks or your grades are even better than in 9th grade. Now, if you're getting perfect grades in 9th grade and 10th grade, you say, well, I can't have better marks or better grades as I advance to 11 and 12. Well, then you just want to maintain those excellent scores, those excellent marks. So you just want to make sure that you're doing as well as you can. And you want to make sure, like I said, that you're increasing the rigor as you go on from 9 to 10 to 11 to 12. Keep in mind also that if your high school has 4 marking periods or 4 quarters, almost certainly the universities will not see all of those details. Most high schools will send all high schools will send an official transcript. When you submit your applications to universities, your high school will simultaneously submit for you your transcript, and your high school will make sure it's an official transcript. And usually all of those details are not provided to the university. It's almost always your final year-end course grade, or maybe they'll give a semester 1 grade and a semester 2 grade. But the point is, if you're getting a B and then a C and then an A+ and then an A+ as your 4 quarters in, let's say, chemistry, well, those grades won't be visible almost certainly to the universities, your B, your C, your A+, your A+. Instead, the teacher will, at most high schools, average out those 4 quarters and give you whatever the grade she gives you. It's probably an A- or an A, something like that. They like to see that trend towards the latter part of your high school year. So these are important things to keep in mind, but from a parent's perspective, this is very stressful. And certainly 11th grade, as I said, very important, because that's the last full year of courses that you'll be presenting to universities. And your 12th grade marks are also very important. Even though you're only in 12th grade for probably 2 or 3 or 4 months, by the time you submit your applications to universities, the universities will wait to see what your first quarter grades look like at almost every university. And like I said, your 12th grade should be your most rigorous or challenging coursework. So you want to make sure that in your first 2 or 3 or 4 months, especially, you're doing really, really well. And you want to try and do well for all of 12th grade, but especially the first half. Now, what else are students balancing in 11th grade, especially? SATs, ACTs, perhaps advanced placement or IB coursework, or not just coursework, but exams. So let's think about standardized exams. And some of you might have hopped onto this webinar. We were chatting casually before the webinar officially started, but some people might have heard our conversation that the University of California system has now gone test blind. They just don't accept any tests. They're not requiring any tests. And a lot of universities, most universities went test optional last year because of COVID. Most universities are staying test optional this year. So if you are a rising senior, meaning you'll be in 12th grade this August or September, and you're submitting your applications this November and December and January, at most / all of the universities on your list, you might not actually have a required standardized exam. So that could be a good thing. That could be a great thing. International students, international applicants are having a really challenging time finding a testing site. So please do not worry about it. If you're applying to a university that says it's test optional, they mean it. It's test optional. It will not be held against you. In fact, at our company, we had probably about 20 or 25% of our students a year ago did not submit standardized exams, and they got into the best universities in the country. So it really genuinely is not held against you if you don't submit a standardized exam. Now, most of the US students who are applying probably do have testing sites near you open. So I do strongly encourage you to study for and take standardized exams. Even if the university says test optional, I still think it's a smart strategy to take the standardized exam, do as well as you can. And then test optional really means you, the student, have the option of submitting the exam or not submitting it. To me, test optional doesn't mean you have the option of taking the exam or not. Again, to me, it means you have the option of submitting the exam. So we spent a lot of time with our students last year really having serious conversations about should you submit or not submit your standardized exams to the universities on your list. And you know what? It turns out it was a mix. So student number one, he might have gotten, and I'm making this up, a 1400 on his SAT, and the maximum, as you probably know, is 1600. Well, 1400 is an amazing score. Well, for some of the universities on his list, he probably did submit the 1400. For some of the universities on his list, he probably did not. So it really depends on what the university averages or what the university middle 50th percentile standardized testing is. So we were trying to help the students be very thoughtful, mindful, and strategic about, do I submit or not submit the standardized exams if the university is in fact test optional? So for younger students, or for the parents of younger students who are listening to this conversation, almost certainly most of the universities probably will go back to requiring standardized exams. So indeed, you should, as I said, plan to study for and then take your standardized exams. Now, a lot of parents and students are probably wondering, which is better, the SAT or the ACT? I get that question probably every day of my life. The answer is neither one is better. And the answer is also, if a university is requiring or looking at standardized exams, they do not have a preference for the SAT versus the ACT. Whichever one you like, whichever one you prefer, whichever one you're better at or stronger at, that's the one that you should take. So for me, and I hope that some younger students or parents of younger students are listening to this, if you are in 10th grade or the summer right before or after 10th grade, I think it's a really great time to take a practice SAT and a practice ACT, and then compare and contrast. Which one did you like? Which one were you better at? And actually, my company, we can send you a practice SAT and a practice ACT over email or over the mail, and then we'll score it for you. So you might want to figure out if you're better at one or the other. And let's say you're very equivalent at both the SAT and the ACT. If you're really good at both, equally strong at both, well, then toss a coin and that's the one you should take. Meaning, if you're really great at both, you don't need to take both. You don't need to submit both. In fact, I think it's a waste of time. And there's other better things you can do with your time, such as extracurricular activities, and doing well in your courses, of course. So if you're better at the SAT, submit that. If you're better at the ACT, study for and submit that. If you're in an IB program or an IB high school international baccalaureate, you want to make sure you're getting 6s and 7s, where 7 is the maximum, if you're talking about highly selective universities. You also want to see if your curriculum can really match what you want to study in college. So if you think you want to study something like business or entrepreneurship, and many of you listening today probably are thinking about that, I like to see students taking economics and calculus and statistics and probably government. Those are the kinds of courses that I'd like to see if you're thinking of positioning yourself as a business applicant. If you're thinking of positioning yourself as, say, an engineering student, engineering applicant, then I like to see students take calculus and, to a lesser extent, statistics and physics and computer science. If you're thinking of engineering, if you're thinking of a science major, then calculus and then a couple sciences at the AP or IB or honors level. So, and some of you might not be interested in those fields that I just mentioned. Maybe you want to be an English literature major or a French literature major. Then you should take the most challenging courses in the humanities type field. So again, what you want to do is make sure that your application is as reasonable and logical and it makes sense to admissions officers. These are humans, real people who are reading your applications. It's not through a computerized system. And so you want to make sure that your essays tell a story that makes sense, your curriculum tells a story that makes sense, your extracurricular activities, and we're here on this slide, makes sense as well. So from an admissions perspective,
Stephen.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Sorry if I can interrupt. I think there are a lot of questions coming. So everybody, please keep writing. We'll try to answer as many of those as we can. But Stephen, I'd love to take maybe a couple of questions. So several questions came to me personally. So right now we are seeing this whole craziness of number of applications going very, very high to Harvard of the world and Cornell. I think some of the institute has seen 30-40% increase. Yeah. Is it like due to some of these tests optional? I mean, what are the reasons why this is changing all of a sudden?
Alok, you're completely correct. In 1 year, Cornell went from something like 50,000 applications to 66,000 applications. Well, what is 16 over 50? I don't know, 32% increase. That increase was really due to the fact that tests are no longer optional. And it's true that if a university is not going to require standardized exams, then a lot of students might have said, well, everything else on my resume looks great. I have fantastic leadership. I have fantastic extracurriculars. I have really great GPA, and on and on. And they say the only thing holding me back from applying to XYZ university is that, Cornell's average SAT is 1,500 and I got a 1,400. Well, maybe I'll just now apply because I don't need to submit my score. So you're right. That's what's happened. The UC system, the University of California, I think UCLA got 120,000 applications when the year before they were at 100,000. Harvard went from, I want to say, 42,000 to 57,000. So 15,000 more students applied. The one thing that I think is, so those numbers are very, very intimidating. I get it. But the one thing I want students and parents to realize is that, well, you'll be probably floored and surprised to hear the numbers I'm about to provide. So when I was in high school, I graduated high school in 1991. So in 1990, when I was looking at universities, I looked at Harvard, and it was the most selective university in the country, not surprisingly, and it was 19% admit rate. And everyone listening to this would probably love to have a 19% admit rate, because Harvard today is about 4% admit rate. So what happened is Harvard back then in 1990, 1991, they got about 10,000 applicants and they accepted about 1,900, so 1,900 students. Well, today, guess what? They're admitting about 2,200 applicants. So it's about the same number of applicants whom they are admitting, but instead of 10,000 applicants, they now have 57,000 applicants. And last year was 42,000 applicants. So that denominator has really grown, but the number of admits has not grown. So you might say, well, is it so much harder to get in? I would look at it this way. In 1990, I think only 10,000 people applied, but all 10,000 of them were super highly qualified. That's probably not entirely true, but let's say 90% of them were amazing, the best of the best. Well, nowadays, I still think Harvard only gets about 10,000 students who are the best of the best, and the other 47,000 are probably honestly not likely to be admitted, meaning they should probably never have even applied in the first place. So I don't know if this makes sense the way I'm describing this, but the point is Harvard's still accepting about 2,000 out of 10,000 really strong applicants. It's just they're accepting 2,000 out of, 50-something thousand applicants because so many more people apply when they shouldn't have. And in fact, that's actually a nice thing about my company is that we have, you might be surprised, but we work with about 400, 500 seniors a year, something like that. We hardly have any students apply to Harvard each year. Out of those 400, let's call it 400, we probably have maybe 10 to 20, something like that. And the reason for that is because we don't really encourage students to apply to that university unless they have a shot, unless they really have the right scores and the right grades and the right everything. And even then they might not get in, but admittedly, that's probably why we have a high admit rate to Harvard is because, and we don't say to someone, you cannot apply to Harvard. We would never do that, but we're smart about giving them the right language and saying tactfully and diplomatically, well, why don't we look at other universities? Harvard's such a reach. And I don't know that, to be honest, I don't know that it makes sense for most students. I know that it does not make sense for most students to apply there. So, I think that's I think that's our role as admissions counselors and consultants is to help students find the best fit and best matched schools for them. Now, it's a shame when someone has amazing everything and doesn't get into Harvard, but I look at it this way. If you have amazing credentials, you'll go somewhere great. We just don't yet know the name of that university.
Thanks a lot. I think I'll let you continue from here.
Sure. So yeah, this is, for Moonshot, this is the most important slide, I think, because as I said, your grades are your grades and your scores are your scores. You, the student, have control over that, of course. But what else can you do to stand out? Well, there's a lot of really smart students with excellent standardized test scores and excellent GPAs or excellent curricula, but there's not that many students, to be honest, who have a really interesting and unique and likable profile. And that's where Moonshot can come in. So we advise students to really get involved in about 4 to 7 extracurricular activities over their 4 years of high school. So, and I imagine some parents might be writing this down, but again, so 4 to 7 extracurricular activities is a really good target. It's a good range. It's doable. It's manageable. I've seen students with 0 extracurricular activities. Guess what? I know nothing about them because they have 0 extracurricular activities. I've seen students with 23 extracurricular activities. I know nothing about them because, well, they just have far too many extracurriculars. It doesn't make sense. I don't get a sense of who the student is. But if your son or daughter has about 4, 5, 6, 7 extracurricular activities, I could get a really good sense of who she is and how she spent her time and what she likes and what she doesn't like. So that's why it's just a suggestion. It's just a target. It's just a range, but it's a really reasonable and logical one. And so we recommend students over their 4 years to get involved with that number of activities. Admittedly, if you're thinking of a very highly selective university and you're positioning yourself that way, probably 4 to 7 isn't the right prescription. It's probably more like 6 or 7 or 8 extracurriculars. Now, keep in mind, universities don't count the number of extracurriculars, so more is not better. They genuinely don't count. A lot of university applications only allow you to list up to 6, so that proves my point that 4 to 7 is a really good number. Most universities allow you to list up to 10. So, 4 to 7, or if you're applying to highly selective universities, 6 or 7 or 8. So those are good things to think about, especially if you're in 9th or 10th grade. Start thinking, well, what can I do this year if I'm about to start 10th grade or if I'm about to start 11th grade? So I like for students to have the 4 to 7 extracurricular activities, but they should be 2 or 3 or 4 years each. So if you're in an activity for just 9th grade, let's say you're playing tennis in 9th grade and you never play tennis again, you should not tell universities that, oh, I was in tennis in 9th grade. They won't be impressed by that. But if you do tennis for 9 and 10, or more preferred 9, 10, 11, or 9, 10, 11, 12, the universities will say, wow, this student was really dedicated to that sport and was really involved and engaged for 3 or 4 years. And it was really, that continuity. It shows that determination and that dedication. So you don't want to share with universities a laundry list of everything you've done over your 4 years of high school. You want to show them the things that you've done for 2 or 3 or 4 years. What have you stuck with? Because that's how universities get a good sense of who you are. But most importantly, they're trying to gauge or extrapolate who will you be on the university campus. So if you've done these activities for 4 years in high school, you'll probably do a similar activity in college or at the university campus. In fact, on the university application, that's my favorite point to make, is that there's a checkbox or a radio button on your application that says, do you intend to continue an activity like this when you get to the university level? And yes or no. And so I like to see lots of yeses. If a student has done volunteer work in high school and says, yeah, I liked it, I'm going to do something like this when I get to college, that's very telling to the admissions officers. So there's no right formula for what your extracurricular profile is. We list here, I'm looking at my slides, academic activities can have impact. So that could be something like a research project at a university, or a virtual research project, or something on your own, a pre-professional extracurricular activity. Let's say you wanted to be a journalism major. Well, writing for your town newspaper or interning at your local radio station could be a really great pre-professional activity. Or if you wanted to be a business or finance major, well, actually Moonshot would be fantastic because it's really giving you the entrepreneurial skill set. Starting up your own company is absolutely something that shows a lot of initiative and a lot of leadership. So pre-professional activities are very, very impressive. Another example, if you want to be a government or political science major, I'd love for you to intern or volunteer at your local mayor's office or the local Senate race or something like a campaign. Athletics, I get this question about once a week. So 52 times a year, I get this question, do I need to do athletics and sports? What if I don't like them? The answer is no, no, no. If you don't like sports and athletics, then don't do them. Colleges don't care. If you like them, then do them and do them well. So it really, colleges and universities are not coming at your application with an idea of who you are. They just open up your application and then find your extracurricular profile and they say, oh, that's who you are. So if you're looking to be a recruited athlete, which is very rare, but about 1 or 2% of athletes are strong enough to be recruited, admittedly, that will really help you get into any university because the universities are trying to fill up their teams. But that's just, one normal activity for most students. Community service, I get this question about once a week as well. Is it required to do volunteer work or community service? No, not at all. I don't know of a single university that requires community service. I don't think any of them expect it. Maybe a few exceptions like the United States Military Academy and Naval Academy. They probably do have that requirement, but those are called service academies. Otherwise, nope, it's not a requirement. If you like it or you love it, do community service and do it well. What would be really nice is if you sort of combine community service with what you want to study in college, because then you're starting to demonstrate interest. If you wanted to, let's say you want to study international business, and then maybe you did some community service abroad, that would be very interesting because maybe you're learning a new culture or a new language. So to me, or an international relations major. So there are ways to combine community service. We had a student once who he did community service as it relates to computer science. He wanted to be a CS major, and at a local senior citizen center, he was a volunteer there, and he helped all of the seniors with their email and their and connecting with their grandchildren and fixing any kind of IT problems. And so to me, it's a really great way to combine community service with what he loved and what he wanted to study at the university. And then last is leadership development. So in any extracurricular activity, we like to see students who are, as I mentioned earlier, taking the initiative, who are leaders, who are creating something. So if you're in a club at school or in your community, perhaps you can become a president, vice president, treasurer, secretary, or maybe you can become a mentor to younger students. A lot of Moonshot students, I think, can become mentors to younger students. Maybe you can become, as I mentioned, the president of a company. Maybe you can become a captain, an editor, a tutor, an advisor to younger students. So any of these things, but really you want to stand out. You want to be different. Of course, a lot of students will have tennis and music, symphony and music on their extracurriculars, and students will have, dance classes and so forth. I don't want you to stop doing those things. I want you to do those things. Yes, they're not unique, but if that's what you like or love to do, you should do those things. But in addition to that, I really think the students who are going to get into the most highly selective universities are going to have something really unique or interesting or different or special. And that's where a project a project with Moonshot can really help you stand out. If I read an application and I saw the student created a small company and sold 100 units of X on the internet, I'd be really impressed, especially if she wanted to study business, but you don't even have to be a business major. So on this, this graphic here, before I move on to the next slide, breadth versus depth, we probably should not have an X under breadth. There's nothing wrong with breadth where you have, athletics and academics and the arts and internships. There's nothing wrong with having lots of those sorts of things. But if you're looking at highly selective universities, they definitely like to see a bit more depth. Like I said, where you're invested in an activity for 2 or 3 or 4 years, where you maybe become the president or vice president, or you founded a small company, or you started up a club at your school. Any of those things where you show real commitment, real depth, that's going to stand out on the application. The other thing that's super critical, I probably don't have these in the right order now that I think about it. The essays are actually probably the most important criterion on the admissions, according to admissions officers, after your grades and your rigor of your curriculum. The essays are your opportunity to talk about yourself. Who are you? What do you like to do? How do you spend your time? What do you want to study and why? Why is this university a great fit for you? Some students applying to highly selective universities have to write somewhere between, let's say, 6 to 20 extra essays. Most of those, by the way, will be short essays, about 100, 200, or 300 words, but sometimes those are harder than the other essays. students spend a lot of time with us as AcceptU counselors on brainstorming, what do I write? How do I iteratively edit my essays? What do I need to tell admissions officers about me in just 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 600 words? They're looking for real clear critical thinking. They're looking for clear writing. They're looking for you to express your ideas. They're looking for you to give your point of view. Now, the one thing that's not quantifiable is likability. Do you come across as someone who's likable in your extracurriculars and in your essays? You can come across as likable. Someone who is going to come to my campus, someone who I want to meet, someone who's going to be in my university community for the next 4 years. So the reason we have Moonshot, the icon here, or the logo here, is because if you're a Moonshot student, you actually will, I promise you this, write better essays. Why? Because most of the highly selective universities will ask, what do you want to study and why? And if you have a Moonshot experience, I promise you, you'll be able to articulate what you want to study and why based on your project, based on your company that you start, based on your experience in leadership and in entrepreneurship. So now there's a main essay for most universities. That's more of a creative essay, but the highly selective ones have what we call supplemental essays. And that's where having a real different or unique or memorable experience really does come through. And I see that there's a poll up here, so hopefully students are able to see and answer the poll. So we're almost done with this, letters of recommendation. You want to get to know your teachers at school, get to know your school counselor. Every school, well, a lot of the international schools don't necessarily have a school counselor, but most do. And that person is going to write one letter of recommendation for you and submit your transcripts and so forth to the university. But how you work with your peers, how you treat others, how you participate in class, how you contribute to your high school community, your letters of recommendation are really going to give that side of who you are. And so it's really important for you, the student, to get to know your teacher as well, to be an active member of your high school community. And that will come through in your letters of recommendation. But also, almost all universities that require letters will ask for 3 letters of recommendation, one from a teacher, one from the school counselor, and then the third one can be from a teacher or from a non-teacher, either a supervisor or a clergy person or a coach, someone who's been a mentor to you. So that is something to keep in mind when you're a Moonshot student. You might think about having a non-academic letter of recommendation come from someone that you work closely with on a project, a supervisor. The best letter of recommendation I ever read was from a student who had a high school summer job at a local grocery store, and the grocery store manager, supervisor, wrote the best letter of recommendation, because normally we see the same thing over and over again from the teachers. So think about an extra outside person to write your letters of recommendation. So how do you support your child? And let's see. So I hope that my slide advanced. I think it did. So how do you support your student in the process? Well, one thing is to be upfront about finances, because some students are obviously able, or the parents are able or capable of paying for universities regardless of the cost. And some of them say, well, we'll look at the public universities in our state. Sometimes there's a combination. Sometimes they'll say, well, you can apply to these universities, but unless you get a scholarship, it'll be too costly. So I think it's really smart for students and parents to have that conversation to see if there are any restrictions or limitations. The one thing, I'm not a financial aid expert. We have a few on my team, or in my company, but the reality is the sticker price that you see for a university is not necessarily what you'll pay at the university. So if a university costs $50,000 US and your family can afford $20,000 US, then maybe that $30,000 gap can be given to you by a scholarship or by a research grant, or not a research grant, a merit-based scholarship or a loan or a work study. So there's lots of ways that universities really try and make it possible for students to attend. There are a lot of scholarships that you can and should apply for, but at most universities, they actually award a lot of merit-based scholarship money, but you cannot apply for them. So if you have these really interesting letters of recommendation, or if you have a really interesting passion project, and you really stand out in the application process, you might receive a lot more money. Actually, a lot of our students receive a lot of scholarship money because of their essays and because of their extracurricular profile. So, the reason the universities provide scholarship money is because they're trying to entice you to enroll at their university instead of enrolling at a different or competitor university. Well, parents can support their students with campus visits. I think it's really important and critical to visit universities as often as you can and whenever you can. Obviously, last year that was not possible. This year, most universities are opening up to visits right about now. So for a formal official tours and information sessions. So the reality is, I don't think it's necessary to visit universities until the summer before 11th grade, anytime throughout 11th grade, or anytime after 11th grade. Those are the times to visit officially. If you live internationally, the universities will not expect you to visit, but if you can visit the universities on your list, you absolutely should. It's a lot of work, time, energy, and effort to apply to a university. And if you visit a university and you don't like it, then don't apply there. So that's one of the benefits of visiting, is because you might be able to eliminate some schools from your list. And another benefit of visiting is you never know, you might love what you see. And then when the university has you write an essay that says, why do you want this school? It's a lot easier to write that essay if you've been to the campus. But visit virtually until you're able to visit in person. In virtual visits, you can get a lot out of them, especially during the pandemic and after the pandemic. A lot of universities really transitioned where they have fantastic opportunities for you to visit a university virtually, meet or chat with an admissions officer, chat with a student ambassador. So it's, as the third bullet point here says, remind your child of your support. I think that's always important. They're very stressed, especially in 11th grade, because that is the last full year that the students have to write their standardized exams and to work very hard on their extracurriculars and to work very hard. In the summer after the 11th grade, they probably have a great summer planned as well. So be supportive and remind your child of your support. And I think the fourth point here is probably my favorite, but it is your students' or your child's future and not yours. And so one of the things you as parents should try and train yourself to do is change the pronoun. So instead of saying, we are taking the SAT next Saturday, you could say, you are taking the SAT next Saturday, or instead of we are applying to Columbia University, you, the student, is the one who's applying to Columbia. So it's really, really, to me, important that the students maybe take a step backwards and give some space and some independence to the student, because, ultimately that student will be on that university campus for 4 years, and that student's really going to need to shine and grow and find out who he or she is. And really, it's a very different world, academically speaking. It's very challenging. And so we want the students to really take the driver's seat when we're working with students in our company. And I think it's a really smart idea for the students for the parents to allow the students to make this process their own. I know it's hard, I really do. And we've seen all sorts when we're working with students over the past 11 years. Sometimes parents are on every single video call with our counselors, and sometimes parents are not at all part of the process, and sometimes it's a mix. So it really just depends, of course, on the family dynamic, and some students need that hand holding a bit more, and some students need a push a little bit more. So I know that it really changes from student to student. I love this piece of advice. Listen to your child. They might say, I want to major in X, and you might say, no, you're majoring in Y. Well, I have a lot of these challenging and difficult conversations with parents all the time, but I really think it's important that the student majors in, or at least considers majors other than the one that you want him to study. And the reason for that is that a student who is happy academically will do very well academically and do well socially and will stay in school and not, transfer out. The student who's doing well academically will then maybe go on to graduate studies. So I just remember we had one student that my company worked with. She was from China, and she majored in accounting as an undergrad. And we did not work with her when she was applying to university. She majored in accounting at a Chinese university, and then she found my company and worked with us on her graduate applications. Well, you're going to think this is funny. She wanted to get a Master of Fine Arts in fashion design. And we said, well, you don't have the right background. You have a bachelor's of accounting. Why did you study accounting? She said, my parents forced me to. They said, that's how I'll get a good job. Well, she was miserable. And so she couldn't just go to fashion design graduate school. She had to get an internship. She had to create a portfolio. We helped her with that. But it really, was very meaningful to me when we found out the reason that she was an accounting major. So I think that it's a good lesson to think about. And then also offering advice when asked is obviously something that I think is really, really important. It's hard not to give advice all the time, but if you're asked, certainly give advice. So what can you do if you cannot find peace? That's probably the reason we're hired more than any other at our company, is we have parents say to us, I think X, my child thinks Y, let's have a mediator. And so they'll look to either, I think the school counselor at your school is someone you should turn to, or talk to us at AcceptU or one of our competitors. Of course, there are admissions counselors and consultants. So a third person could be really great for mediating. It's funny because parents will say to us, wow, they wouldn't listen to me. Even though, the parent had good intentions, they might say, well, you don't know what you're talking about. You did not work at a university. So they will usually listen to the admissions counselor almost always, if not always, but sometimes there's a lot of tension in the family dynamic. Maybe a family friend or a cousin or someone is a third party who could also give advice on what is a fantastic essay, or maybe that person can review or read your child's essay, so it's not mom or dad reading the essay. So I do think it's good for someone as a parent to take a step back and maybe see if there's another viewpoint or another perspective. And I love this last point, and then we're done with the presentation. We can do Q&A. Remember that the stress will end. And like I said earlier, the students will get into a fantastic university and they'll thrive there. We just don't yet know the name of the university at this point. So our social media, you can follow us on LinkedIn or Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. But here's our contact info. We do have an introductory free phone call. I think this is linked actually to my colleague's calendar. So you can actually just book a time and have a conversation with one of us. And Alok, that's actually all I have to present. I'm sure there are some questions that have come in, and happy to answer those as well. And I'll leave this up for a little bit if you want, or I can.
Yeah, Stephen, if you can stop sharing, I got the same information in the next slide.
If I can stop, I do know how to stop sharing. There we go. Perfect.
So first of all, I think, so two unique things are happening. I'm not seeing those in general when I'm doing a lot of the session. And we try to answer every question, but now direct and in the group, we are seeing over 70, 80 questions. So I'm really sorry. We might not be able to answer all of them, but I don't. But it was definitely a treat to listen to you, Stephen. And we'll love to take a few questions. But before that, I think this is just coming from me, as we deal with hundreds of students. It might be a good idea for you guys to really understand this new generation, right? There are books, and one book I really got impressed. The author is Jean Twenge. I'm sure, Stephen, if you have seen it, she wrote the previous book that was Generation Me, and then it is iGen. And this is about the data they are tracking from 1992, all kind of data about the generation, right? And a lot of drastic changes happen around 2005 in last 15, 20 years. And many of these changes might be contrary what is our current belief, right? So right now, there are two sides of the coin. On one hand, these kids are getting smarter, they have so much access of the information, but on the other hand, the kids are behaving differently. So for that book, a 17-year-old child is really behaving like a 14, and a 14-year-old child is really behaving like a 11. And why that is happening, there is a lot of data and all that. And once you start peeling up layer by layer, you will be able to see what's happening. So the kids, when they are getting married, when they are finding their boyfriend, everything is shifting by 3-4 years. Some of that you might think as a parent might be a good thing, right? But look at other things. When they start getting their first paycheck, also shift by 3 years. When they are really start driving, when they are getting their driving license, also shifted by 3 years, right? So a lot of things which are really independence, right? Which gives these kids independence, And again, I think the nature of job has changed. So in the past, there was a lot more blue collar job. It was a lot easier when you are young to get those jobs. Now it is getting more complicated. Jobs are requiring a lot more education. And then same thing for driving and other things, and some of this parenting, right? We might have choices now versus they did not have before. But what it is doing, that there is a lot more influence of parents when they are like 13, 14 to all the way to 16, 17 in compared to the past. So I think it's very important for us to learn about our own kids. And I will recommend to read this book. I think it might be an eye opener. But let's dive into some questions. So really one question, Stephen, I'm getting very often.
Yeah.
And then this was not there in general, but now this is there. During the pandemic, a lot of people has moved around, right? One in every fifth American has moved in last pandemic, which is a lot of movement. We haven't seen that kind of momentum. And in Silicon Valley, pretty much every company allowed you to work from anywhere for last 1.5 years. A lot of parents have moved. If they were renting, they sold their house, whatever, lived somewhere more fun. And then now they are coming back and they are saying, I have two choices. I can go to one of the most crazy school where there is a lot of pressure versus I can go to a next door, just 2 miles away. And that school might not be that much pressure. My child might be able to outshine there and compared to the most aggressively structured school. And they have a choice now to rent there or buy a house. What would be your advice?
Great question. I've gotten this a good amount over the years, but you're right. This is accelerated over the last year. My advice always, well, I shouldn't say always, but for the most part, I would advise someone to go to the less competitive high school. As long as the less competitive high school is still very good or strong or offers a lot of the classes you want to take, I think that just from what I've seen, if you from an admissions perspective, the universities don't know the rankings of the high schools. They don't care about the rankings of the high schools. If you're the top student at the best high school in the state or the top student at the worst high school in the state, you're both going to have an equal opportunity to get into the best universities. Promise you that is true. Now, if you're the best student at the worst high school, there is a bit more of a barrier or hurdle that you need to climb. So if you're the best student at, and I'm obviously using an extreme by saying the worst high school, but that worst high school probably does not have AP classes and IB classes or honors classes. So if you really wanted to go to a top university, it's great that you're the best student, but you probably have to have really strong standardized exams to prove that you're sort of equal to the students at the top high school. You probably need to take a community college course or 2 or 3 to also prove that you can handle the rigors that the students from the top high school can face.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the next question is really, does AP scores of 4 versus 5 really matter when applications are reviewed?
I like to see 4s and 5s. So that probably helps you, the parent or the student, whoever asked that question. I would say that, I'm not going to lie. If I saw a student get 800 math, 790 in the evidence-based reading and writing, and then 5 on all of the AP exams, it's very, very impressive. But you don't see that very often. And there used to be this exam called the SAT subject test, which went away about a year and a half ago. We used to see lots of those tests as well. So because there's no SAT subject test, I do imagine more students will probably take IB courses and AP courses. I love 4s and 5s. I would like to see more 5s than 4s if they're in courses related to what you want to study in college. So on your application, you do need to check 1 or 2 or 3 check boxes depending on the university. You're not declaring your major, you're just indicating to the university, if you enroll me, this is, or plural, these are the majors that I think I'll go for. And so if your major, your first checkbox is mechanical engineering, and then I'd like to see 5s in your AP physics and AP computer science and AP calculus, and I don't really care what you got in your AP Spanish that much. I probably don't care if you got a 1 or 2 or 3. I mean, I'd like to see 3 or more. But the point is your 4s and 5s, especially 5s, should be in course subjects that are related to what you think you want to study in college.
This is very good. So really the next question is, if you apply for a financial aid, can it hurt your chance of admission?
Absolutely not. And let me put an asterisk next to that. If you're applying to any highly selective or very selective university, I'll stick by my answer. Absolutely not. They're need blind. Almost all well, all top universities and almost all universities in the top, let's say 100, they're going to be need blind. In fact, they're so expensive that almost everyone applies for aid anyway, so they don't hold it against you if you apply for aid. By need blind, it just means the admissions readers don't even know if you've applied for aid or not, and that's the way it should be. They're also, the Ivy League institutions in particular happen to be called need-based. So if you do receive financial aid or you qualify for financial aid, it's not based on your merit or your standardized test scores or anything like that. You only can receive need-based financial aid, meaning if the university deems through some formula that your family needs some help to afford the college, then they'll give it to you. They're very wealthy institutions. There are some schools that used to be called need aware. And so you can always go to the admissions website or the admissions/financial aid website of each university. And they should be pretty upfront to say if they're need blind or need aware. But most schools you'll find are completely need blind. Now, some universities, if you're waitlisted and the university is trying to take, let's say 20 students off the wait list, admittedly, they might go to those who are not needy, as they use the phrase. They might go to the students who are able to pay in full, but that's rare and that's only on the wait list. Not something anyone has to worry about right now.
So the next question, and there are several questions on the students who are related to medical pursuits. So one is really IB versus AP, which one is better for medicine? And whatever is your suggestion, also they are asking, or different people are asking, which courses are recommended for medical pursuit?
Sure. Whoa, this is actually a very loaded set of questions, even though they might not have realized it. So I'll break it down pretty easily and pretty quickly. So IB versus AP, it doesn't really matter. If your high school has one set of subjects versus the other, then your high school, then that's what you take. If your high school is one of those high schools that offers both AP and IB opportunities, and you have to choose one or the other, and we see that a lot, then I might give a slight edge to the IB over the AP, but it's ever so slight. So yeah, the universities don't really have a preference for one curriculum, but they're very impressed with an IB curriculum because it's kind of like taking all APs for both your 11th and 12th grade. That's why they like that. But your high-level courses in the IB curriculum, if you're given some choices, your 3 high-level courses should be STEM-oriented if you're pre-med, or if you're on the AP system, then your AP courses should be biology, chemistry, calculus, certainly. I mean, feel free to take others like physics or computer science and so forth. But the ones that I just mentioned, it's almost required, if you will, to take the calculus, the chemistry, and the biology for pre-med types. Now, keep in mind, that's why I said it was a loaded question. If you're pre-med, most people might not realize this, you can major in anything and then go on to medical school. Most people think mistakenly that you need to be a biology major or maybe chemistry or bioengineering major. Those are amazing majors, fantastic majors to go to medical school. But I have a friend, I just saw her a week ago, who was a Near Eastern Studies major, and then she went to medical school. So to go to medical school, you need to make sure you take 2 years of biology, 2 years of chemistry, 1 year of physics, 1 year of math. There's a few other requirements like a semester of English literature and so forth. But to go to medical school, you basically need bio, chemistry, physics, and math. And if you're a Near Eastern Studies major or an Asian Studies major or an international business major, or pick a major, if you're any major, and in your elective courses, you take the biology, chemistry, physics, and math, then you're a pre-med. So, it's not surprising that bio majors often tend to think pre-med, but you don't have to position yourself as a bio major if you're pre-med. It's just, it's common, but I like actually medical schools. I'm probably going to get a lot of questions about this, but medical schools love to see non-bio majors when they're looking at their applications. So because they're unique, they're different. They add some other perspective to the medical college.
No, so I'm seeing several questions, and this is very surprising. I'm laughing at looking at this question. You might be a good influence or bad influence. Let me tell you what people are asking. So I'm sure you get this question all the time. What is the right time to talk to you or talk to a counselor? Right? But
that's a good question.
Hear this out. The question is, my daughter is rising senior. I love the Moonshot Junior program. Is my daughter is too late? If she does the 12th grade. Please
No.
answer both the question. I think the first
Sure.
question.
Yeah, I mean, with AcceptU, we always say earlier is better. So, I mean, between me and the audience here, I do think ninth grade's a little early. So I like 10th grade or older, but yeah, we work with ninth graders as well. But there's not that much, like I called it the planning phase. There's not that much we can do with ninth graders except help them think about, getting involved with Moonshot or taking harder courses next year and so on. So it's the planning phase for ninth and 10th graders. We do a lot more concrete activities with 11th and 12th graders. Now, the second question, is it too late to start with Moonshot or is it too late to start with AcceptU? No and no. If you do a Moonshot project this summer, you're setting yourself up really well for senior year for your applications. Can you work with AcceptU starting today or in August? Absolutely. Probably about 20% of the students we work with start with us in the summer before senior year or in senior year. Admittedly, we have less influence on certain things when you start with us in senior year or rising senior year. We can't change the courses that you've taken in grades 9, 10, 11. We can't change your standardized exams, although we can have a little influence going forward. We can't change your extracurricular profile from grades 9, 10, and 11, but we can give a lot of influence on your school list, on your strategies for admissions, on your essays, most importantly, and if you have any interviews, and even a little bit of influence on what should you do this summer. So it's a good question that the mom asked. Yeah.
No. So I think I try to combine as many questions as possible.
Those plural. Yeah.
So just trying to do the justice so we can answer as many.
Appreciate it.
So I think I'll take a last question, and this question is really: does going to a religious school or religious high school can impact your application?
Sorry, the audio cut out. Did you say going to a religious school and then repeat the rest?
Can impact your application?
I mean, not at all, unless you're applying to a religious university. So if you attend a religious school, does it help or hurt if you're applying to a secular university? No, not at all. If you're applying from a religious high school to a religiously affiliated university, I think it can help. For example, if you're at a Catholic high school and you're applying to Boston College or Notre Dame or Georgetown and so forth, I definitely would say they like to see students from Catholic high schools, or Jesuit high schools. But yeah, I mean, there's students, can attend whatever high school they want. I look at it this way: as long as you make the most of your high school. It's challenging if you're at a public high school that's large, because then you might not get to know your guidance counselor, your school counselor very well, or your teachers very well, or you might not become the president and vice president of a few clubs because there's so many others. So you really have to be more of a self-starter or take initiative if you're at a larger school. So I think there are some advantages to a smaller school, and the religious high schools tend to be on the smaller side. There's some advantages, but I don't ever, no university can hold it against a student based on the high school he or she attends. They just say, okay, you're at this high school. Did you make the most of what you did in your 4 years? So that's probably a good way for us to end it as well.
No, absolutely. So I think, Stephen, I think we have no choice but bring you back. I think, this is kind of attendance we are seeing about 90% audience we are still holding. So I think amazing job. I'm thrilled. I mean, I learned a lot of things from you, Stephen. Everybody will have Stephen back.
We can just do a Q&A next time. We've done that.
And then, Stephen, I'm not sure if you have a reservation about sharing this presentation with folks, the recording.
Please do. Yeah.
All right, excellent. So everybody, whoever was asking, and I was not sure, we'd love to share this recording. Our contact information is there. If you want to sign up for Moonshot Jr., or if your child aspired for either high-end technical, want to build a product, or want to go through a product building experience, or all the way to the entrepreneurship. I think now we are learning more, especially what Stephen has said. These things can look good on the resume. Again, we are not a college admission experts, and neither we want to be. We are here to really teach our kids for Industry 4.0 and prepare them for the future, but AcceptU is. So Stephen is here, and his contact information is as well as there on the slide. Please reach out to his company. They are really expert. They have big brand name, And thanks again, everybody, for staying late. And thanks a lot again.
Thanks. And thanks for having us. We really appreciate it. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you for your attention and questions.
Take care.